Hi. We're continuing here. This is Ron Frank, professional name Al Frank. And we're here on page 7 of the script, Or to the People. We're going to go here to the Dissolve, Library of Congress, time present day. People are wandering at all those books and a patriot steps into view. Jefferson's advice for us is our ticket to the knowledge intended for us all to have, to be taught to read for ourselves and not ever to have any confidence in any other to tell us what was written or what it means. Jefferson, voiceover in a whisper, or to the people. Dissolve. Tight close-up of Jefferson's hand as he writes, or to the people. Main title, or to the people. Background. Like an architect's hand framed tight over a document of the Declaration of Independence, or what I like to call the Declaration of Interdependence of the American people. Jefferson applies his personal seal to the letters he is writing on the subject. Seal. Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. Music. Contemporary tribute song about the American theme. What America Means to Me by Frank Sinatra. It's available. Please listen to it. Then Dissolve, the view of Washington, D.C. in a widescreen hues of afternoon light, targeting the Jefferson Memorial. A voiceover in his own words as the camera moves in. Jefferson voiceover. I have sometimes asked myself whether my country is the better for my having lived at all. I have been the instrument of doing many things, but they would have been done by others, some of them perhaps better. I proposed the demolition of the church-state establishment and the freedom of religion, the act of prohibiting the importation of slaves, the act changing the course of descent, giving inheritance to all the children, and equally, an act concerning citizens, establishing the natural right of man to expatriate himself as he wills, were just some of the concerns of the times. Overlay. Text engraved above the statue of Jefferson. I have sworn upon the altar of God eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the mind of man. Camera tilts down to encompass the full statute of a standing Jefferson looking straight across the reflecting pool. Narrator. The primary objective of the institution of government is to secure the greatest degree of happiness possible to the general mass of those under it. I'll say it again. The primary objective of the institution of government is to secure the greatest degree of happiness possible to the greatest mass of those under it. Dissolved to the exterior of Monticello, July 1816, it's dusk. Camera moves to frame the window of Jefferson's bedroom. He's seen sitting at his desk writing a letter to a fellow patriot. Jefferson's voiceover. Sir, I am not among those who fear the people. They, and not the rich, are our dependents for continued freedom. And to preserve their independence, we must not let our rulers load us with perpetual debt. We must make our election between economy and liberty, or profusion and servitude. If we run into such debts as that we must be taxed in our meat and in our drink, in our necessaries and our comforts, in our labors and our amusements, for our callings and our creeds, and our people must come to labor 16 hours in the 24-hour, give the earnings of 15 of these hours to government for their debts and daily expenses, and the 6/10 being insufficient to afford us bread, have no time to think, no means of calling the mismanagers to account, but be glad to obtain subsistence by hiring ourselves to rivet their chains on the necks of our fellow sufferers. The camera moves off and away from the window. Cut to final shot. Time is the present. Patriot steps into frame as narration continues. A full waving American flag as a backdrop. The narrator, voiceover. That to compel a man to furnish contributions of money for the propagation of opinions which he disbelieves and abhors is sinful and tyrannical. The basic rights of man are most significant and more than the written law. If that law impedes the sovereign rights of an individual, his own existence, with being victimized by repression from government or church. Nor will the opening scenes of our present government be seen in their true aspect until the letters of the day, representing the spirit of the day, now held in private hoards, shall be broken up and laid open to public view. What a treasure will be found in General Washington's cabinet, when it shall pass into the hands of as candid a friend to truth as he was himself. Patriot. In one of his many letters from his home in Monticello, Jefferson writes, "The question you propose, whether circumstances do not sometimes occur which make it a duty in offices of high trust to assume authorities beyond the law, is easy of solution in principle, but sometimes embarrassing in practice. A strict observance of the written law is doubtless one of the high duties of a good citizen, but it is not the highest. The laws of necessity, of self-preservation, of saving our country in times of danger are of higher obligation. To lose our country by a scrupulous adherence to written law would be to lose the law itself, with life, liberty, and all those who are enjoying them with us, thus absurdly sacrificing the end to the means. Our patriot steps out of the frame as we dissolve to Interior Library, Philadelphia, Revolutionary Period. Full frame on parchment paper, the bill for establishing religious freedom. A slow roll down. Section 1. Well aware that the opinions and the belief of men depend not on their own will, but follow involuntarily the evidence proposed to their minds, the Almighty God hath created the mind free, and manifested his supreme will, that free it shall remain by making it altogether insusceptible of restraint, that all attempts to influence it by temporal punishments or burdens, or by civil incapacitation, tend only to beget habits of hypocrisy and meanness, and are a departure from the plan of the holy author of our religion, who being Lord both of body and mind, yet chose not to propagate it by coercions on either, as was in his almighty power to do, but to expand it by its influence on reason alone, that the impious presumption of legislators and rulers, civil as well as ecclesiastical, who being themselves but fallible and uninspired men, have assumed dominion over the faith of others, setting up their own opinions and modes of thinking as the only true and infallible, and as such endeavoring to impose them on others, hath established and maintained false religions over the greatest part of the world and through all time, that to compel a man to furnish contributions of money for the propagation of opinions which he disbelieves and abhors is sinful and tyrannical. That even the forcing him to support this or that teacher of his own religious persuasion is depriving him of the comfortable liberty of giving his contributions to the particular pastor whose morals he would make his pattern. and whose powers he feels most persuasive to righteousness, and is withdrawing from the ministry who those temporary rewards, which proceeding from an approbation of their personal conduct, are an additional incitement to earnest and unremitting labors for the instruction of mankind, that our civil liberties have no dependence on our religious opinions, any more than our opinions in physics or geometry, that therefore the prescribing any citizen as unworthy the public confidence by laying upon him an incapacity of being called to offices of trust and employment, unless he profess or renounce this or that religious opinion, is depriving him injuriously of those privileges and advantages to which, in common with his fellow citizens, he has a natural right. That it tends also to corrupt the very principles of that very religion it is meant to encourage, by bribing, with a monopoly of worldly honors and emoluments, those who will externally profess and conform to it. That though indeed these are criminal, who do not withstand such temptation, yet neither are those innocent who lay the bait in their way. That the opinions of men are not the object of civil government, nor under its jurisdiction. That to suffer the civil magistrate to intrude his powers into the field of opinion, and to restrain the profession or propagation of principles on supposition of their ill tendency, is a dangerous fallacy, which at once destroys all religious liberty, because he will, being of course judge of that tendency, will make his opinions the rule of judgment, or her opinions today, and approve or condemn the sentiments of others only as they shall square with or differ from his or her own. That it is time enough for the rightful purpose of civil government, or its officers, to interfere when principles break out into overt acts against peace and good order. And finally, that truth is great and will prevail if left to herself. No need to put the gender into it, actually, but we can leave it there, okay? It's the same. That she is the proper and sufficient antagonist to error, and has nothing to fear from the conflict, unless disarmed of her natural weapons, free argument and debate. Error is ceasing to be dangerous when it is permitted freely to contradict them. Section 2. We, the General Assembly of Virginia, do enact that no man, that also means woman, shall be compelled to frequent or support any religious worship, place, or ministry whatsoever, nor shall be enforced, restrained, molested, or burdened in his or her body or goods. I added or her. Nor shall otherwise suffer on account of his religious opinions. Wherever it says his, please, her is the same thing. Opinions or belief, but that all men shall be free to profess and by argument to maintain their opinions in matters of religion, and that the same shall in no wise otherwise suffer on account of his religious opinions or belief, but that all men shall be free to profess and by argument to maintain their opinions in matters of religion, and that the same shall in no wise diminish, enlarge, or affect their civil capacities.